Welcome to heCast, the official podcast of He Changed It. As always, I am Mike Chisholm. As always, I am so excited to be here. I know it seems like it might be that I'm putting it on, but no, it's not. You ask all the people around. I get really excited to have these conversations, and they're not always the easiest conversations in the world. My gosh, today our guest is a guy by the name of Chris Ellis, former RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police up here in Canada officer. He's a cop, former cop. And the reason he's a former cop, it wasn't his idea that he would stop being a cop. He, through some events that happened in the line of duty, they changed his life radically. Here's a guy who wanted to be a cop since he was a kid, has people all around him who were in the force or the military of some sort. Like, it was just one of those things where it seemed like it was predestined. And Chris, he had an interrupt, and he talks about that. He talks about not just the incident that took him out, but what it did to his mental health. And the story is phenomenal. He's a great guy. We met actually originally at a Public Enemy concert, and with he and his lovely wife, and we all just became very fast friends. And it's evolved into this place where he's open to telling his story, and it's just such a beautiful, it's a beautiful journey that he's on, and talking about it is just amazing. And just listening to him from some of his stories, being on the surveillance team and whatnot, I could listen to Chris tell stories all day. This is a very cool conversation. Very grateful to present to you on heCast today my conversation with former Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer Chris Ellis. Chris, I love our story, and when I say our story, I mean yours and mine. At this point, so much. I love how we met. I love how when we met, it was like, hey, what do you do? What do you do? And I had said I host a couple of podcasts, and it's funny. Many times I'll mention the Letterman one, and people will jump down that rabbit hole immediately. When I said I host a men's mental wellness podcast, I every once in a while I get a reaction like I did from you that night. And well, tell me more about this. Tell me more about this. And then suddenly you start going into your story, and without even knowing it, we've killed almost all the time where we're waiting for the event to start. I just really appreciate the fact that you were so open to me that day when we started talking about this stuff, because your story is one that I think will help a lot of people. So Chris, thank you so much for taking some time, not just to be on, but to be vulnerable and talk a little bit about what you've gone through here on heCast. Thank you so much for coming out, man.
Of course, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm quite excited. I'm still feeling
I'm excited too.
Yeah, the energy of that night that we met. It was contagious. Yeah, it's great.
It was a bucket list moment for both of us, and I mean, we'll let the viewers and the listeners know. We went and saw Public Enemy in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, together, and got an experience way beyond what we ever thought that we would get. Chris and I, similar ages, grew up Public Enemy in our formative years. Then we ended up hanging out with them, and they were like performing like right for us while we were at the very, very front of the crowd. It was, like you call it, a bucket list moment, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I've relived the moment many times, telling my friends, my family. Some of them, of course, are like, "Nah, no way." Like, you sat down with Chuck D, not a chance. And I said, "Here's the photos. Here's the autographs. It's all there." And if I had have went back, if I have a DeLorean, go back in my time machine with Doc Brown and say, "Hey, 14-year-old Chris, one day you're gonna meet rap legends, and they're going to be right in front of you and sit down with you and just chit chat like you're just a regular guy. They're regular guys." I don't know. I don't know if I believe myself.
I use that analogy all the time. And yeah, like if you go back and tell 16-year-old Mike that was going to happen at one point, 16-year-old Mike would look at you like you got three eyes, just have no, are you kidding me? And we had that experience, and we had that night. And at the same time, we're able to connect, and your story is one that I just think is so important. It's so important for people to hear, and know this. And I mean, people who have listened and watched this show know that we have a lot of friends that are first responders, and what those people go through, no matter what tip of the spear you are, whether it is fire or ambulance or police, whatnot. First responders themselves. I mean, I'm so grateful for you guys and gals that are out there doing this. When did your relationship with the RCMP begin? How old were you?
I'm going to sound like a cliche saying this, but ever since I was a little kid, I have a memory of my mom's boyfriend paying a parking ticket in North Vancouver when I was about
Yeah.
5 years old, and I guess at that time you went into the actual police station to pay the ticket, and I had a police officer come up to me and say, "Oh, are you going to go over to the fire department next door and see the firefighters?" And I said, "No, I want to be a police officer." So, I mean, that's going back to 43 years now, so I'm 48 now, almost 48. And so, I mean, it sounds cliche, but it's what I wanted to do, from when I was small, serve my country somehow. My uncle was in the armed forces. My grandfather was in the military in World War II. That's how he met my grandmother. And it just was always kind of in my blood, I wanted to
Yep.
do something, make a difference somehow.
When I was a kid, I wanted to be a Ghostbuster.
I think that was
Sometimes you can
third or fourth on my list. Yeah.
it's all protection, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, sometimes every once in a while you meet somebody where the childhood dream ends up becoming a reality. So did you go basically say, okay, yeah, we'll do high school. I'm going to be straight as an arrow because I know that I want to go and get trained immediately. Is that what it was? Or was there a route to get there?
Well, if anyone from my high school ends up watching this, they're going to say, Chris was a police officer? I think I knew what line to just kind of skirt around. I was a pretty good kid growing up, but I got into some trouble. I mean,
Sure.
just enough to learn, right? And my life experience growing up, I think, really helped me become an honest and fair police officer, because I'd seen some things in my teenage years and my young adult years that made me understand that police officers are human, and they're flawed as humans are, and everything they do is based upon that personality, right? So I think the experience from teenage years really helped me become a fair police officer. And I have a bit of a colorful family background also, so all of that helped contribute to it.
Yeah. So when was it that you actually, I don't know what the process was, put pen to paper, but it was an application, I assume, right? To see if they would accept you. How old were you at that point? And you're still in BC at the time, right?
Yes. So when I turned 18, I actually was considering joining the Marines. My dad living in Southern California, my uncle was, please don't join the Canadian military at this point. There was issues with funding and pay, and they just had their own business going on. So I was interested in joining the Marines, and my mom really pleaded me not to. And that was about 18, and about two years later, I met my now wife, whose father was in the RCMP, and he said to me, "Have you ever considered policing?" And I said, "Yeah, it's been on my radar." So that was when I applied for the auxiliary police when I was 20. I wrote the
20.
exam.
So that's young. That's young. Were you the youngest one there?
I would say I was. Yeah, I was part of the new auxiliary program. The first troop that was the revamp program. We didn't have firearms, where the program before had firearms. And yeah, I would say I was probably the youngest, pretty darn close.
At 20, yeah, that's and I mean, you strike me as a guy who would have hung out or at least identified with people that are older than you growing up. I know I was that guy. I hung out with a lot of people who are older, that sort of thing. So when you're 20 and suddenly you're hanging out with all of these, older people in the situation that you were, like that must have been stretching for you at that point.
I'm trying to think back. It's so long ago. I think I had a goal, and my goal was to learn, one, is this what I want to do for a career?
Okay.
And no insult to the people that I was training with, so to speak. I really didn't become personally involved with them. There was one that actually became a member after the fact that I did become friends with. But other than that, I was pretty goal orientated. I wanted to use this median as a way to, one, figure out, is this what I want to do with my current life, and two, do I have what it takes, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you think about that age, like, I mean, how awesome would it be if when people are 20 years old, that would be the line of thinking that they go down? Is this what I want to do the rest of my life? Is this like they're thinking about the bigger picture, maybe when they're dating somebody or they're at a job or whatever? You had that line. I'm curious, the people who were in the auxiliary with you, obviously not all of them wanted to go on to become members. Not all of them wanted to, they were all there for different reasons. It must have been a very interesting group of people.
Yes, it was. And I appreciate all of them in their own, because policing is so diverse, and everybody is part of such an important component. And seeing what auxiliary constables do, I mean, at the time I was a banker. I was a personal banker, and I would get phone calls. Oh, we've just had a homicide. We need you for scene security. And I saw some things as a banker. I mean, I was robbed a few times, things like that. That's common in banks. But
sure,
seeing people that have taken their own life, or a murder victim, that was interesting to go to work on Monday. I'll tell you that, seeing that over the weekend. But in saying that, we needed a diversity. It takes a plethora of people to do that job properly. So, and some of them, I want to say out of the group that I was with, 5 of us out of 20 became police officers, and the rest,
okay,
yeah. And like I said, I was friends with one and I worked with another. Not saying that we weren't friends, but you can read between the lines there. We worked together, and they both were very good police officers.
So, is it an apt comparison? Like, I mean, because I know some guys who are, I know I've got people in my life who are career police officers. I know I've got people in my life who are career firefighters. Both of them, I mean, the through line to get into the actual force itself is for firefighters going and becoming the volunteer firefighter at that point. Would you say that those two things are kind of similar to each other? For if people who want to get into, community protection, get into the RCMP, becoming an auxiliary is the way to go, in a similar way to the way that being a volunteer firefighter is to get into the fire department?
It's a really good question. I actually have quite a few friends that were volunteer fire living in Pitt Meadows. It's a volunteer fire department. Now they full-time guys and and gals. And a lot of them did go that route. I think it almost appeared as though it was mandatory. Now with the RCMP, they appreciate volunteer work on your resume. And of course, any volunteer work connected to policing is a bonus. I wouldn't say becoming an auxiliary is a mandate, but for myself and others, it was just such a great way to get a glimpse at components of the job.
Right. When you were at the bank, so again, to keep going on that point, the firefighters that I know, when they're part of the auxiliary, they're not the auxiliary, but the volunteer fire department, and then they have the opportunity to kind of get it, like they're kind of chopping at the bit. They're going to work every day, but it's one of those things where they know what they're doing in their evenings. They know what their goal is, and that, that's kind of what they want. That's the goal. When you were at the bank and you had gone on, these first couple of, I mean, can we start calling them traumatic? Was it traumatic right from the start when you start seeing some of these things? And are you the personality type where, yes, you're seeing these things as part of the auxiliary crew, but on the Monday morning when you go to the bank, you're thinking, oh man, I want to be a member so badly. Is that where you were for a while? And how long was that, if that was the case?
Yeah. Once I got a taste of what was going on out there, it really propelled my momentum propelled. It really sped up. We only had a minimum amount of hours that we had to do a month, but I was doing well more than that. I don't want to use the word addicted, but it was an adrenaline rush for sure. Going out, I had a couple of members that I think, appreciated having me along with them. I didn't get in the way. I helped when needed. I didn't overstep my role. I knew the boundaries of an auxiliary constable quite well, and I stayed within it. But yes, Monday morning, I was starting to really see the monotony in being a banker.
So how long was that monotony? How long did that last before? And what was the next step in you becoming a member?
So I wrote the exam and I failed. I hadn't written anything since high school. So it was, mind you, what I did write was all math and for banking and my securities and stuff like that, mutual fund courses. And so I failed and I was devastated. I still to this day remember my wife and I were living with her parents because we had left one house and waiting for possession of our new home. And I remember opening that letter and I crumpled to the ground. Like I failed. Like my life's over. What am I going to do? And, Jackie, my wife, was, well, we just got to figure it out. And I ended up getting a tutor that specialized in law enforcement exams. And so I worked with her for a year because at the time, if my memory serves correct, I couldn't write for another year.
I was going to ask. Yeah. They only let you do it intermittently. Yeah.
Yeah. So I took a tutor. The exam itself is secret, but enough of it's public that she could build a really good tutor course around, and she did, and I aced it. I didn't get perfect, but I almost got perfect. And at that time, being a white male, you had to score I think the exam was out of 4. You had to score almost out of 4. And I did very well. And then, it was about a year and a half it took for my interview and my background check and all of that. And then I was off to Regina.
So it's for you, knowing what you wanted to do, you had to hurry up and wait for about 3 years when everything was said and done. A year, 2.5 years kind of a thing.
Yeah, I would say almost 3 years. Yeah, it was a long time.
You wanted it bad. Now, that being said, you wanted it bad. You're on the auxiliary crew. You're seeing stuff. You're that routine in that line of work can be. I mean, that word, the routineness of the extreme things that you see being a member of the auxiliary crew. Yes, you got a taste of things. Was it similar when you became a member, or was it was it a matter of baby steps in seeing some of the things that you've seen?
I pulled my gun on my first day on the job and pointed it at somebody. So it was. I worked in I worked in a very, very busy city, Port Coquitlam. I believe Port Coquitlam has really done a good job, but over the last 10 years, I believe the crime is down. As our crime statistics, I believe, across the board. But yeah, I had my gun. I pointed at someone on the first day on a stolen vehicle. So, most people, if they're not aware, a police officer pulls their gun because they fear their life is in danger, and you pull your gun not as it's the intent is there. So it started off pretty quick for me.
Whoa. And okay, so you get back to the station after, and you're filling out reports and doing all the admin stuff. What are they saying to you? Oh yeah, okay, Rook, yeah, you got like that's or does that trigger your first day? Does that automatically trigger? Okay, let's do some mental health stuff, or back then was it not no? This is just part of the job, and let's just keep going every day.
You just keep going. This is just part of it. My memory doesn't even have anything in there. No recollection of anyone talking to me after the fact. It was that's just where we work. This is just the job. So.
Wow. Okay. We'll jump around, do a little bit of time travel here. How long did you do it for before you actually had to leave the force? How long of a time span are we talking here between that first day where you had to pull out your firearm on your first shift as an RCMP all the way to when you had to say, okay, we have to call it quits here? How long a time frame are we talking?
It was 11 years.
11 years total.
Yes.
My word. Uh, Now, back then, was there any, like, we've had first responders on here and different members of the RCMP, but also like different police forces from throughout the country, right? And I mean, now it seems that mental health and talking about these things it's night and day compared to the way that it used to be, but yet still, there's a long way that we could go with that. Was there any consideration for that when you were a member?
Uh, there wasn't. The only time that I was offered any grief counseling was when one of our coworkers died. He was like the dad on the watch. I loved him.
Yeah.
He was a great member. He was a constable, and he was just a wealth of knowledge. And he had an accident while on vacation about 6 weeks from retirement, and unfortunately
Are you
passed away.
kidding me?
Yeah, I know. It's just one of those heartbreaking stories, right? And his wife actually worked as a civilian employee at the detachment also, and he was the guy that always was center of attention at parties. Like back in the 2000s, we'd have rock band parties, and he'd always be singing Bon Jovi, and it was great. And every time the Bon Jovi "Living on a Prayer" comes on the radio, my wife and I both say, "Oh, there's Gary's song." And yeah, I remember they brought in counselor for that, but that was the only time. And if you extrapolate to over 11 years, I saw a few things that I would say definitely needed counseling for.
Yeah, and that's what I'm so grateful that you are as vulnerable as you are about things, but you've also gone on a journey and you've learned a lot of stuff. And when you learn stuff, being able to kind of look back and say, oh yeah, I can see a time where I could have done this, I could have done that. And really, when it comes down to it, I mean, I don't know if you've got to be a different personality to even be able to do that job, but even with the most apt personality for it, the perfect match, one would think that you're going to bring along psychological debris or mental debris just doing that job. It just feels like it's inevitable.
Yeah, I would say that's 100% accurate. Looking back on my past and thinking, if I had have had counseling after seeing this person's tragedy or this person's tragedy, et cetera, what would I be like today? I feel without the injury that I sustained, I'd probably still be a police officer today.
Yep.
I think there was definitely moments, opportunities of interjection because I've worked on those issues today, and my life today, I function quite well. But it wasn't without the intervention of psychologists and psychiatry, and it was after the fact. So, once that trauma was embedded in me, it took so much longer to work its way out. But if I had nipped it in the bud, so to speak, or had a regular monthly contact just to get it out, I think it would have drastically changed who I am, who I was over that period of time.
Yeah. Well, and I want to bring up your wife too, because I met her at the show as well. And I mean, I love your dynamic between the two of you. It just it was so cool and so easy. It was such a great evening meeting the two of you. But I wanted to bring her up because so you don't have a roadmap. I mean, hindsight is 2020. We're looking back and we're talking about these things right now. So this is a gal that you've been with since your formative years. And she sees you go through all of these processes and I'm curious as to what her take is, knowing that her husband is seeing this stuff. You did sort of progress into it, the auxiliary, and then the time that it took for you to become a member of the RCMP. But like along the way, were there ever times, do you think, where she was like, Chris needs to talk to somebody? Was that ever something that was on hers or other people's radar as you were going through your career?
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I believe there was times that she saw a difference in me, whether I was becoming more cynical or I was becoming more aggressive.
Yeah.
I used to be, quite a bit assertive person, but there's a very fine line between the two. My drinking increased. I was
Okay.
never a big drinker. And so my alcohol intake increased. Spending more time at parties, being the last to leave when I was always the first to want to go or not go at all.
Yeah.
So I would believe she would probably at some point have said, yeah, I definitely noticed a difference in Chris. However, her with her father being in the RCMP and the I sorry to say old school member and
Yeah.
old school mentality, I believe she grew up with watching her dad just deal with it in his own way.
Yeah.
And no fault to him because that's all he knew, right? We only know what we know. We only know what we're taught. And
Yeah.
so I think she just kind of grew, oh, this is just how cops are, you know?
She kind of knew what she was getting into. And, many times women end up, quote unquote, marrying their fathers, marrying men who are very similar to their fathers in that sense. Safe to say that that's the case here.
There's similarities between Bill and I would say that. That's probably why we butt heads so often because we're so alike.
There you go. There
Yeah,
you go.
and of course, Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. No, please, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and then after, me being in the force for 3 years, Jackie then became an RCMP member herself.
Really? So there we go. And how's her mental health?
She worked in an incredibly difficult job. She worked with abused children in Surrey. And I would say that's probably, in my opinion, the hardest job is to work with children that have been violated or hurt or injured or maimed in any way. I couldn't do that job. Brutally honest, I would, if I seen someone do something to their child, I would likely be in jail.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And gosh,
yeah. So
we have a child advocacy center here in Kelowna, and he changed it, and we've connected with some of the people that are there. They're in our lives, and I mean, some of the stories I hear are just, and not breaking confidences or anything like that, but the things, the gravity of what they have to deal with. And then the liaisons from the different organizations, whether it is the social workers or RCMP or things like that. And I mean, I would like to think that it's a fairly smooth running machine that we have sort of here. I mean, can you imagine when it's not a smooth running machine? Can you imagine all of the messiness that comes with it? Well, yeah, you can, because that's kind of what. That's kind of what you two have. So was there that's a weird, it's, I know it's a weird question, but is there like trauma bonding between the two of you because of some of the stuff that you've seen and you two can kind of relate on a certain level because you have had similar, not the exact same, like you say, she focused on the children, but similar in the sense of it really kind of gets to you and it goes into your subconscious and it's not good stuff sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. They say trauma bonding isn't a great thing to have
Yeah.
your only common, but we had known each other for quite a long time before. We actually, we both worked at the bank together and we were involved in quite the movie themed takeover of our branch. Four or five guys robbed the branch in the takeover. And we went out after, and everybody kind of had to decompress, and that's where we kind of, hey, how's it going? Hey, how are you? And yeah, so our relationship based on that Sandra Bullock, Keanu Reeves speed moment, and we've never looked back. Yes, part of our relationship definitely has grown because of trauma. And I think that's one reason why we're still together, actually, because we understand what each other may be going through.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, wow. It's unbelievable. Now you go into it, did you stay in Poco the whole time or did you move around?
Yeah. Poco, Coquitlam.
Yeah.
It's one detachment, so you kind of patrol the Coquitlam and Port Coquitlam area, and then I worked in a surveillance team and a target team, which took us, all over the Lower Mainland. Wherever our targets went, that's where we went.
So I'm curious about, before we get, okay, so we're gonna get to the accident and how you dealt with that and how, the lessons you learned. But now I got to go down that path a little bit. With the fact that you've got some military in your family and things like that as well. The training for the surveillance team, I imagine that would have been a lot of fun for when you described the Chris growing up. I imagine that's right around some of the things that you would have loved to have done.
Yes. My alter ego while I was growing up was Breaker, and my best buddy at the time
As in the
was
GI Joe
Destroyer.
Breaker.
Yes.
My man.
Yeah. And we played GI Joe. We were the GI Joes, hiding in bushes and sneaking up on people. My other pal and I would play Ninja in East Van at 9 o'clock at night. I mean, things just kids don't do anymore, right? And yes, the surveillance, I loved surveillance. I was made for that. I loved dressing up, and I had a big beard. I wore a wig sometimes, and they had all these different versions of me, so the target wouldn't recognize me.
I want without, obviously we don't want to break anybody's confidences or procedures or anything like that. But that being said, I want to hear a couple stories about you in the surveillance unit. As to, you must have seen some crazy stuff.
Oh yeah, most definitely. We were tasked to work surveillance on some pretty high functioning organized crime groups, because we had that ability as that section to come off of what we were working on to assist other units. So when you're seeing duffel bags full of, you can only imagine what, changing hands, being a police officer, your first instinct is to go stop this, but you have to watch and record. Another time, watching people where they're just so oblivious to the fact that you're there for them. And, they, once you've arrested them, then they put two and two together. And, oh, that's why I recognize you, because you're the guy that's been following me for 3 weeks. So I think the one of the funniest stories I ever had was, and this won't divulge anything in the matter of confidentiality, was I was driving a fairly nice Nissan Altima, and we were engaged in active surveillance, and I took a corner a little too tight and popped the back tire. And I'm in civilian clothing, and I pull over into a parking lot to do the pit change of my back tire, and someone walks up to me and, "Oh, do you need a hand with that?" And I'm bending down, and they see my firearm, and they get it. "Oh my gosh!" And I'm, "Oh no, it's okay." I'm trying to reach for my badge wherever it is on my person. I'm a police officer, I say to them, and and they walk away. I changed that tire in probably 2-3 minutes flat, and I was back in the game. So that was, I remember that.
Okay,
story.
driving a Nissan Altima, is that something that's like leased or rented from the RCMP, or do they have like cars that are set up specifically for surveillance?
Yeah, there's a fleet of vehicles that is set up for that.
It's the stuff we just never think about, right? It's just the stuff that, and it's cool. Like, it's a testament to know that, here I am, 49 years old on this planet, and there's a bunch of things that I am literally oblivious to, and it's because of, people like you and the organizations and whatnot. And when I think about people complaining at these organizations, and I mean, you've seen it, obviously. I'm certain that you're outspoken in protecting your brothers and sisters that are still on the force. I mean, like, those things that we don't think about them because you guys are there, and you guys are taking it to a place where I don't have to think about it. And it's just one of those things where, I mean, I always whenever I have somebody who is, whether it's military or whatever, we always thank for the service. I'm going to do that right now. Like, thank you so much for your service. Thank you so much, you and all those who you work with that aren't on a podcast today because they just wouldn't do it because they're in active duty. Thank you all for everything that you guys have done. I hope that during these polarizing times, you still get that. I hope you get people who are grateful and thankful for it. And for your service while you were there for that 11 years. I just thank you so much for that, Chris.
Yeah, you know what, Mike, I appreciate that very much. And, you know, I always think about society and what they don't know. And I think ignorance is bliss. I think there's enough trauma that is being broadcast to us on a daily basis. For whatever reason that is. I think I'm quite grateful that not everybody is aware of what actually occurs. And yeah, you know, you asked, do people thank me for my service? I do get that quite a bit, quite often here in Calgary. Now that I'm moved to Alberta, much more actually than I did in British Columbia. One thing, I do have I have a veteran's plate here on my vehicle. The stipulations are a little different for veterans plates. So people will see me in the parking lot and thank me for my service, and I'm like thinking, how do you know? And then my license plate. And then, you know, a lot of places will offer us discounts we have a CF1 card, so I offer that, and they typically will thank me for my service. So it feels nice.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that. I'm very, very glad to hear that. And we can maybe get to the frustration about people's maybe misconceptions. Maybe we get to the end of this, but I really want to stay with your story because it feels like you're one of these people, one of these guys or gals, you know, where it is a duck to water. It is, you know, you're doing what what your purpose is, whatever you want to call that. But it got cut short. And I want to, you know, go into that because yes, you have all the things that you've seen and potentially the mental health stuff that's happened there, but there's a couple other dimensions of it with your story. And can you talk about, it was an incident, right? That ultimately was the first, you know, lily pad in the lily pads that led to you not being able to do this anymore. It was an actual incident that happened, correct?
It was, yes. I was working in general duty, which is uniform policing, and one of our members was at an unruly house party. And as most people maybe aren't aware of this, RCMP, you are by yourself quite often. So we're responding to calls alone. So she responds to a call, and it's, you know, it's a hornet's nest of teenagers, and they start throwing rocks and eggs at her car. So she calls for backup immediately, and I think myself and another member were second to scene. And like I said, it was just kids everywhere, and we saw two run. So instinctively, when someone runs, it shows we think they've done something bad, so we chase. They actually end up, you know, breaking into a home while fleeing, and we catch them. And while I was escorting the youth back to my vehicle, his parents showed up, and the dad actually hit me with the truck, and I fell to the ground. I let go of the youth, and then the mom jumped me from behind. And at the time, I you know, adrenaline and everything else that was going on, I wasn't aware of what occurred. It was, you know, I was sore in my back, and I always started to feel back problem. And it wasn't until actually a year later I was getting ready for work, and I twisted, and I lost control of everything below my waist. And so I went to the hospital, and they told me, you've got a broken back. And
you've had it for a year.
Yeah, I mean, it still to this day it's shocking to believe. You know, like, and I had told people, I slipped a bit in the shower. Maybe that's what I did to my back, you know, and the x-rays revealed, yeah, you've got two old fractures here in your lower back. Like, we have to rewind the tape to try to figure out what happened. And of course, with due diligence, I wrote out my injury report form at work that, you know, someone had jumped me from behind, and I was having some achy back here and there. And that's how they determined what it was. It was a compound fracture of my L4-5 vertebrae, and it also, bilaterally blew out my discs.
So do we think that's because you were, it's a ridiculous question. It's a question I've never asked in my whole life on any of the podcasts, hundreds of podcasts I've done between the two shows. I've never asked this. Do we know if you broke your back from being hit by the car or being attacked by the woman? Do we know which, like, what a crazy question to ask.
Yeah, it is. They likely assume that it was from the lady jumping upon me. Yeah. Wow. Just the mechanism of injury matched better than the truck wasn't going very fast, maybe, 10, 15 kilometers an hour, enough to knock me off my feet and, allow protective mom to get the best of me for a moment.
I just got to go into the story here for a second. Because again, I you see people who are very, whatever, they look at life very differently than you do. Right. But it's like, okay, if I'm rolling up on something and I'm seeing a police officer with my kid in custody, I don't think my first move is to go and try and hit the cop. I don't think that's my, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be like, oh my God, what did my kid do? Hey, can I de-escalate? Can I, please don't hurt him. Like, I don't think my first move would be to attack. What are we talking about here? Like, what was,
we often would joke that we worked in Pocompton. I mean, I sorry if that's derogatory to anybody. It was a busy place, and I'm a parent, and I'm a protective parent. Let me tell you.
Yep.
If I ever saw anything like that, I would not replicate that scenario. That does not go through my mind. So, what was going through mom and dad and sister's mind at the time, I honestly have no idea. And I hold no ill regard to the people because they did what they did because they thought that was right in that moment, right? They were doing the best they could with what they had. And maybe they didn't even see the uniform. I don't know. It's dark, right? Like you see someone manhandling your kid. Maybe I don't know. There's 1,000 reasons why they did what they did, but they did it. And, no ill feelings towards them. It is what it is. As they say, it's just the business, right?
Okay. Did it take you work to get to that place where you could say that? Or was it that way right from the start? And that's just something a pattern that you had developed while you were a member there?
Oh, no. I despised those people. I blamed them for years. I had so much hatred towards those people. And
there we go. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And right now, able to say with full integrity, you hold no ill will towards them. I want to know about that bridge. How did you go from there to there? How did that happen?
I just woke up one day that way. No,
seriously. You almost had me like, oh,
I know. No, it took a lot
Case
of work.
Closed. We're good.
Yeah, we're done.
Just time. That's all you need. It's just time.
Yeah, a lot of work, a lot of dedication. I've been in treatment 4 times. I've had a nervous breakdown. It took a lot. It took a lot of showing up every day. It took the will for me. I'm going to say right now, because I know what questions I don't want to assume, but there's always questions that kind of go with this theme. I didn't want it to win. I am so stubborn. I am so goal orientated that I've seen people take their life because of a multitude of reasons. And I've been to the hanging of the noose, so to speak, that close. And I did not want this to win. I was so against it to ruin who I was.
I appreciate you saying that. And I mean, I don't imagine any of the work that you did was in the year that you were working with a broken back. It's all after the fact. And I mean, you've kind of shown why were you still working with a broken back? Because you didn't want it to win. You were stubborn. You're tough. You're going to tough it through. The definition, one of the things with He Changed It that we're trying to change is we're trying to take back the definition of the phrase man up. You know, the old version of Man Up is what I'm seeing that you were doing. The new version of Man Up is, okay, I've gone through something. I'm going to be vulnerable about it. I'm going to hit it straight ahead, right between the eyes, and I'm going to do the work that it's going to take to get past it. That's what manning up should be. But I think it got perverted over the years. Where it's like, you know what? No, I'm just going to bury it. I'm just going to put it down here. I'm not even going to give it any breathing space whatsoever. And I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. As we all know that's a temporary, that's a temporary state. You're not going to be able to, that's not sustainable for most, if not all people. Safe to say that that's where you were?
Most definitely. I was diagnosed with PTSD in maybe 2013.
Okay.
And that was my first exposure to the operational support injury clinic. And it was, they said you've likely had this, since you maybe even got prior to getting into the police, because as a police officer, I had seen things as an auxiliary that were never dealt with. As a child, I had my first aid and saved an old man, when I was like 15 or 16 years old. When I was on my honeymoon, I saw a car flip over and 2 people died that I tried to administer first aid to. So I've been subject to a lot of trauma, and I likely had PTSD prior to becoming a member. And so when they formally diagnosed me in 2014, I wasn't shocked. I wasn't shocked at all. I wouldn't.
Nowadays, I wouldn't imagine there's anybody who would be shocked by a diagnosis of that. But I mean, you take off even 10 years from that date, 10 years before, it's almost a bit of a novel, concept. Otherwise it was like, oh yeah, so-and-so's messed up because they saw this or whatever. But PTSD, as common of a term as it is now, post-traumatic stress disorder. I mean, back then even, we're moving forward significantly. Like I can only imagine the amount that you have seen the RCMP move in this direction in your time, from then till now. They've moved, from everything I've heard, and I think you're going to confirm this, they have moved incredibly in the direction of wanting to take care of their members when it comes to stuff like this.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I still have members that are friends, and, I say to them, the most important asset you have is taking care of your mind. And they say, yeah, look, the force is doing a much better job at that. I think some of us were missed. And I think the RCMP is learning that an individual is such an asset that, that you can't replace people every 5 years, because they don't have the experience, they don't have the knowledge. It's just not a feasible business plan. And, your vehicle, we take care of with oil changes and our regular maintenance to get life out of it. So we should be doing the same with people, and that's kind of the way I look at seeing a psychologist or a psychiatrist, is just maintenance. It's, talking to someone, getting it out, figuring out what's bothering you, how to get from A to B, and shift the trauma, get it out of you, get the feelings out of you, keep it flowing.
Absolutely. I mean, nobody would think twice if you think about the idea of, hey, maybe you should take a jiu-jitsu class, once a week. Maybe you should go to the gym and work with a trainer, 2 or 3 times a week for some strength training and whatnot. Nobody would ever bat an eye at that. Well, the idea of maintenance on our mental, our mental place, like one would think there should be some sort of emotional or mental gym that everybody should take part in, just like they would if they went to a physical gym.
Yeah, not even first responders. I mean, it's just humans. We see things all the time that we're not meant to see. I always say, people are so apt to speak about violence, and they watch movies with violence, but anytime you see sex or anything on it, it's like, oh my goodness, it's the worst thing ever. But violence kills and sex creates, but yet we have embraced one and not the other. My children, I have 2 daughters, and they're adults now. One's getting married, and the other is over 19, and they both have partners. And it's like sex is normal. Sex is a human thing, but people, they're so adverse to talk about it. But violence is just, I mean, look at how we get up and cheer at hockey games when two guys start beating the crap out of each other, right?
Sure.
That's just easy example.
I've thought about that. Like, I've wondered, because we do have this primal nature in us, in everything. I love the way that you put that, sex creates, violence destroys. I love that you just said it so plainly like that. It feels, people need to kind of have that in front of them, that truth in front of them. Sometimes I think about like the UFC. I think about hockey. Of course, we're Canadians, so hockey is our, is religion up here, right? And I mean, it's a professional sport that has legal fighting inside of the sport, and I'm so grateful for it. It's grandfathered. You can't. If someone was to start a new sport tomorrow that would take over the world, it would not be allowed to include fighting in it. It just wouldn't. It's one of those things, and we celebrate this stuff and video games and all these sorts of things that are out there. And I've often wondered, if they take the place, like if you're a big football fan or you're a big UFC fan and you have a little bit of that vicariousness, I'm a big LA Kings fan, right? And so I refer to us as we. I'm a member of the team. That's how I always see it. And I've wondered if these things that are out there when it comes to violence is one of those things that actually kind of curbs, some of this stuff in people. I've wondered about that. But when you take something and you put it under the carpet, and you say, oh, we're not going to talk about it, we're not going to, are you making it into something worse than it actually is? And I love that we're having this discussion about this, because that's kind of how it feels to me. I don't know.
It does. It does. I agree with that.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, so that being said, okay, how did the PTSD manifest itself in you? Like, we've had people on here talk about sometimes it's a certain song, a certain geographic, they drive by a place where, sometimes it can be that on the nose where, oh, I saw something horrible here. And every time you drive by there's something that happens subconsciously. How did the PTSD manifest itself for you?
For me, it was memories, seeing things, seeing places. One of the worst files I had was a young guy was picking up his girlfriend and he was stabbed and he was actually stabbed in the aorta. So nothing I could have done would have saved him, except for become the best witness and find out who did this to you, which I was able to do. And the person was caught, was put in jail, and but that doesn't replace the young man. I know the family probably still suffers from it every day. And that was one of the things that hit me most, was this poor guy was picking up his girlfriend and, pointless, right? And that one bothered me for 10 years. I had a really hard time. And so the sounds of sirens, because I was first on scene, alone in this, once again, a hornet's nest, sirens, certain smells, certain weather would get me, because it was in the winter, and it was cold and damp, and that's, I just described 80% of the weather in Vancouver. So certain neighborhoods, Port Coquitlam, I couldn't go to. I lived in Tip Meadows. I mean, there's nothing to do in Tip Meadows, so where do you go, right? you're almost always going through Port Coquitlam. So
absolutely,
it was a lot.
The weather is very interesting. I'd never heard that one before. In all the times I've talked about PTSD with different people, whether the camera's on or off, I hadn't heard of that one. And it makes a lot of sense. And I mean, what you're describing here is the extreme version. And there's no question it's the extreme version. Most humans don't see, what you've seen, 1 out of 100, 1 out of 1,000, whatever that number is. But you think about even us going through our daily lives right now. And I don't know about you, but one of the things that I know is a gift is awareness. Awareness of this kind of stuff, because there's so much stuff that just is autopilot. But when you pop your head up and you become aware of things, and you really, really kind of are present in that moment. I was in a good mood this morning, and now it's midday and I'm not in a good mood. Okay. Well, what happened in that time? And I can't really explain it. Is it something that like you're talking about? It wasn't a smell. Was it something that brought up something that has now led part of the brain down a negative path or a traumatic path? Very interesting that that was the case for you. Must have taken a long time for you to notice it, or was there a specific incident that happened in your life where it was like you talk about a nervous breakdown? Did a nervous breakdown happen, and then that's where all this got unraveled, or was it an event that made that happen?
I think the nervous breakdown was in conjunction. I was going away. I went away for treatment, and the treatment that they were using was EMDR, which is a light memory, bring memories up and then kind of dissipate them.
Yep.
But I believe it was just too much for my brain. We often say as first responders, we have a Rolodex of trauma. And I think what happened was when we were doing the EMDR, there was just so many traumas that were coming out. My brain just literally broke under the pressure. It just said, I can't handle this. I'm shutting down. I'm going somewhere else. I'm going somewhere else for a little while.
Yep.
And so
I'm gonna take a little break.
Yeah. So the Chris you're seeing right now went on holiday. The brain portion of me, the Chris you're seeing physically, went on a holiday to the Kelowna psych ward.
Yeah.
And then I was transferred to the Ridge Meadow psych ward for 30 days. And one of the things that I was doing at that time with my coping mechanism was cannabis. I was smoking an abundance of cannabis. I was abusing it. They had given me a license, 3 or 5 grams a day, something ridiculous. And I will tell you, I was utilizing that because at the time there was no way for you to go to one place. You could get your amount of prescription and you could go to another and get it. So I believe when I was apprehended under the Mental Health Act, I probably had $3,000 of cannabis in my car. And
whoa.
Yeah. So I was, on this permanent, almost like, a psychedelic high. Like I've never, used cannabis to that point where I've seen the world in a different way. And, it almost brought on, like a personality of bipolar or schizophrenia. And it was the cannabis. So
you have stood on the edge. You stood on the edge and you've looked over. Like that's for you to have that foresight to even say, bipolar or schizophrenia, that sort of thing. That is that's a profound thing that you've been through. It really, really is. If you could go back and say something to that person who's staring over that edge, do you know what you would say?
Don't jump.
Yeah.
Someone told him not to, so maybe it was my future self. Like I often say to people, I saw the Matrix at that point. I saw beyond reality. It was so strange how I saw the world. And my doctor at the time, Dr. Ryder, a huge shout out to him, was my family doctor since I was 5 years old. And he was adamant that I was not bipolar or schizophrenic. He said he's having a nervous breakdown. Look at what the guy's been through. And I think it was him and my wife and my really good pal Mickey that really believed what was going on and got me the help that I needed.
Now that you're okay, so let's finish the rest of the story, and then I've got questions that I want to look back on. So at the end of the day, at that point, like, okay, so it's a year after you find. Let's go back to the year you realize that you got the broken back. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, this guy shouldn't be, this guy should not be in the field. This guy should be resting and healing. You get taken. Is that essentially what happens? So you get taken off duty at that point completely to heal, or do you take a desk job?
No, I needed a surgery ASAP.
Okay.
I had pressure on my spinal cord that they had to relieve. So I needed surgery, like I said, right away. And jumping through a few hoops, because RCMP is not government medical, runs it a little differently. But I was able to get surgery pretty much straight away.
Yep.
And spent a little bit of time in the hospital and then healed, and then tried to get back to work. And hurt my back again. I went back too soon and blew out the discs that were supposed to be healing. And I did that a couple of times. And I ended up having in total 4 back surgeries to correct the original injury, and then on my fourth one, I had a post-operative infection that it actually claimed my life for about 3 minutes. I flatlined. Yeah. I was in ICU. My body went septic, because
Oh,
of what happened.
yep.
And I woke up, basically in a hospital bed, not knowing how I got there. I spent 6 weeks in the hospital. They had to do an operation to remove the tumor off my spine, and then they, medically speaking, a lot of people enjoy the story. They used a back dressing, which is something they put on with a vacuum that sucks the poison out. And then they also, at the time, they put a line of medication right directly into my heart to keep me alive. So I look back at the photos of me then, and I was grayer than the wall behind me, and I was pretty sick. And yeah, that was a tough time.
Wow. So like, okay. I mean, and now we're talking about other trauma, like that's, getting past that. And I mean, we've already alluded to the story. It ultimately, with these injuries and things that have happened, since and whatnot in your back, you had to basically walk away from this life that you kind of asked for since you were, breaker as a kid. you were, you had to, and I mean, you're in your, arguably, I mean, you look at what genetics and human performance and stuff these days, you're at your peak. You're basically at a time where you were at the peak time. You were starting to gain wisdom, as opposed to, like you say, the 5-year thing. You're becoming the guy that's been there for a while, that's able to help new people and whatnot. Like the old timers in the RCMP are so, necessary. The knowledge is such a good thing. You're at this place where you're really starting to peak, and yet it gets taken away from you. I can't imagine that helped with the mental health journey that you were on.
Not at all. I wanted to say I was bulletproof. I could have done that job until I was 60, right? That
Yep.
was kind of the illusion that I had told myself. And
Yep.
to have that shattered, and to have a surgeon say, if you go back to work, you could be in a wheelchair. What's more important to you? Like that, it was devastating to have that taken from me, because I had built up this identity. Who else am I? I'm Constable Chris Ellis. If I was a constable my whole career, that wouldn't have mattered to me. Like I wrote the exam. I was an acting corporal on the watch. I could have promoted it. Well, I don't want to sound like I could have promoted. It's a difficult process, but if there was a job, I would have applied for it. I was very satisfied being a constable and training new members. And like you said, even when I was on the road, 5 years was a lot of service at the time. It was unheard of to see constables on the road with 5 years, and people are going to find that hard to believe. But the average amount of general duty time is 2 years, and people are going into specialized section. I love general duty. I found it very rewarding. So yeah, when this happened, I mean, it broke me.
Purpose and identity. Those are two themes that we're kind of building on here. The identity part, I was, Chris Ellis, Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Like that's who you were. That's kind of what you make your identity. And then also you go into purpose. Like, am I serving my purpose? I mean, so many parts of He Changed It. So much of that rely on the idea of self-discovery of what purpose is, because many times there are guys who don't even know what their purpose is. They have no idea. They've never explored it, or perhaps they create a purpose that is so, specific in their mind that it sort of does become their identity. Those two things, like purpose and identity, it feels like those are the things that were kind of ripped away from you. How long did it take to do the work to kind of realize that you're way more than just, the RCMP officer?
I would say 10 years of hard work.
Wow.
I'm finally pat on my back. I've been discharged from the Veterans Clinic. I'm no longer seeing a psychiatrist every 2 or 3 weeks. I'm no longer seeing a counselor every month. It's more just check-ins when I need, and even my medication has been decreased. So it was 10 years. It was 10 years of blaming. No, I don't want to say that. I want to say it was a couple of years of placing my blame upon the RCMP. I hate you. I hate you. It's your fault. Why weren't you there for me? I think that's just part of grief, right? Like you're
Sure.
angry, and and I'm sure I came across to many that I worked with as a horrible person, right? And I'm taking down what they're still rah about. I'm now attacking their industry and their machine. And I would imagine that was very tough for some people for them to hear that. But it was my anger, and I needed my anger to go somewhere. And if that was the lightning rod, then so be it, right? And but it did. It took 10 years, and it's going to be ongoing work the rest of my life. I know that. I know that sitting here, I could leave this house and something could activate me, and I'm going to have to use the tools in my toolbox. My wife says it to me, I don't want to say every week, but there's weeks or time that's like, you've got the tools, continue to use them. And she's absolutely right. And I do. There are days where yesterday was the anniversary of my father's passing. So I'm feeling a little more emotionally vulnerable. And I did something challenging yesterday. I went to the mall, and the mall is challenging on a regular day with a lot of people, and people bumping into you and not knowing where they're going. And they're just so myopic in their own world. And,
Yep.
And that's just a challenge for anybody, not just a former police officer with PTSD. And then add on that I'm, thinking about my dad that passed away, and it's just using the tools. Right. So, I would say 10 years of caring about myself and working and the people around me, right? I said it before. I didn't want this to win. I did not want it to win.
It's a couple things there. I mean, the irony of you when you took that blame. I mean, the idea, okay, blaming the people who attacked you, blaming, whoever. I mean, but to actually blame the thing that you love so much. And the idea that you hated the thing that you loved so much and wanted so much. I mean, the irony there is it's insane. But at the same time, it's also it's heartwarming to know that was temporary. And and through doing the work and whatnot. And I mean, the guys that are listening to this right now that are going through something. I mean, the idea it's temporary, and you can choose to move in a solution-based direction. Yeah, you can choose to do that, and it might take 10 years, but wait, when you hear stories like this, does it give you food for thought that perhaps you could collapse a time frame or two, and you could start heading in that direction now? So that was one thing I wanted to talk about, and I do want to talk about directions. But I need to tell you something. I wasn't going to bring up the post you put up about your dad yesterday because I mean it was but you brought it up, and so I just want to tell you the post that you put up about your dad. Absolutely, I lost my dad in at the end of April, and it was I mean. After a few months of some really, really difficult dementia, institutionalized and dementia and all that. So there was a few months of real horribleness, and then we lost him, and the way that my mom and I kind of talk about it is we were grieving in quicksand before because there was always another shoe that was going to drop. Now we can at least, once we lost him, we can at least grieve on solid ground. That post that you put up about your dad was absolutely beautiful, and it helped me a lot. And I want to bring that back to, like, many times when we go through something and we talk about the things that we feel, the things that we have learned, others can take that, and he changed it is wrapped up in that entire concept. As I hate the fact that the time has gone as quickly as it has. I told you, time is slippery. When we start doing this, it goes quick. Yeah. But it's, I want to talk about that a little bit because he changed it. The entire premise of he changed it is to take something that you need and leave something that you know. And the idea that like talking about how you feel about your dad. 'Cause is it 4 years since your dad passed?
11.
Oh, it's 11 years. Sorry. 11 years since your dad passed. And writing what you wrote yesterday, the freshness of not the event necessarily, but your feelings and where you're at. I mean, it's right on the surface. It's right on the surface. And it was like, oh my goodness. And I took stuff from that.
Oh,
For
I
me,
appreciate that.
dealing with it where it's really fresh from a time perspective, I took stuff from that. And I want the idea of as you and I kind of wrap this up here, I would love to take and focus on, what would you have told yourself when you were at that? Like, what are the things that worked in helping you move forward? What are some of the things that you would kind of throw out there? It's not advice. It's just the things that you learned along the way that perhaps somebody listening to this that might be going through something, similar or entirely different, but it brings up stuff and they're in that awareness, that place of awareness. What are some of the things that that benefited you and helped you get to the point where now you can go to a Public Enemy concert and with 1,000 people around you, whatever it is, and be able to experience that joy? Because that was joy. Like I watched you, because we experienced it. It was very similar. The joy that we felt, it was pure joy. It was almost like mainlining joy that night. And I don't think that perhaps that Chris existed, a few years ago, even.
No, not at all. They always say the worst type of vice is advice, right? I used to give a lot of it, and I had no business giving any advice. You'll see my Buddha. I appreciate Buddhism very much. And Buddha said the wise man said nothing. In the end, I know nothing. I just got here. But if I was to go back and talk to Chris in the past, I would say that you're so much more than a police officer. You're so much more than a.
Yeah.
I may get emotional here. Sorry.
It's okay.
You're so much more than a police officer. You're a father and a friend and a son. And you're a neighbor, and you're a human being. You're a person. You don't just need to be a cop, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I embraced that quicker, but I didn't, and I'm still here. And if I would open my arms, to the idea of healing myself, to admitting that what I've seen was not normal, was not natural, that strength doesn't mean you can't break down and cry. The strongest man breaks down and he cries. If you got a good friend, your neighbor, and you're suffering, don't do it alone.
Yeah.
There's no point. You've got people around you that will, I'm sure I pushed them away. I'm sure I pushed a lot of people away, and it happened. I'm still here to talk about it. I'm grateful for that. But I would say take the help that's there. Pride has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Strength has nothing to do with it. We're not Arnold with a M60 machine gun, mowing people down and then not thinking about it. And I think a courageous man is one who will speak of his feelings and own his shit. We're not perfect. We're flawed as beings. We're going to make mistakes. It's learning from those mistakes. It's moving forward with what we have. Learning to love yourself, learning to look at yourself in the mirror and go, I'm okay with this guy standing here in front, because I'm doing the best I can with what I've got, with what I've learned, but still in the end, I can still do better.
It also feels like if I'm hearing you right, you know that there's only so much that you can control, and the idea of being able to let go of the things that you have no control over, that can take a lot of weight off the shoulders too.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really good point. Life happens to us, not for us, right? And I took a couple of things away from Buddhism, and I'm not going to go down the road of what people should believe in
Sure.
or study, right? But one is nothing in life is permanent except for impermanence, which means nothing is permanent.
Yeah.
So everything we're experiencing will move through us. We just have to allow it, kind of give ourselves out to something, we're all a part of something bigger than what's going on here. And, I like the zoom out principle. If you're in the room with us right now, listening to this conversation, it's a heavy conversation, and it's going to invoke a lot of emotions, but you only have to get about 5 feet outside to have no idea what's going on here. And that's really,
yeah.
I don't want to say your people's problems are insignificant, because when they're in your life, they're as grand as anything. But we don't have to get very far for them to become smaller. Yeah. And I learned to embrace that a lot.
Those are all very, very, you talk about the permanence one. I'm getting better at that one. Like, I'm the guy that likes to have everything kind of buttoned up, right? Like right now, I think about the things I think about is like, okay, I know I've got enough income coming in that I'm going to, cause I have a business owner, right? So, but like I'll say, so, okay, I know I have enough income coming in to get me to the end of January right now, so I can have a good holiday season. And I like kind of bring everything back. But sometimes I get to the place where I'm rigid in that, where if it doesn't happen the way that I've planned it out, it can hijack and disrupt and cause all sorts of stuff inside. Whereas recognizing the fact, because I mean, I don't think you have to believe in Buddhism to know that everything is impermanent. That is a fact of life, and knowing that does provide comfort, because everything is temporary. Look at what you went through. My gosh, it was temporary. And the guy back then might not have realized it, but it was every bit as temporary as the leaf, that gets green and then red and then brown and then falls off the tree. It's every bit as temporary. All the things that we're going through. So guys who are listening to this right now, you may be going through, the worst thing that you could even imagine for yourself. It's temporary. And I mean, to learn how to find comfort in that, I think it could be a life hack, and it's certainly worth exploring. So yeah, I appreciate that, because that's one that I'm always trying to work on. The idea of that. So would you say it's safe to say that you've become a lot more mellow, a lot more go with the flow than you were before?
I would say I'm much more mellow and go with the flow. I think that, now that I live in where I live now, and moved out, I have met new people, and I think they think, wow, he's a guy who doesn't drink. He's pretty chill. He talks when need. I'm not the center of attention. I used to always need to be the center of the party, and that was my mask, so to speak. I would think most people would say I'm pretty laid back, pretty chill. I think once I got over I used to ask myself the question, why me? Why me? And I flipped the script and I said, why not me? I think that really helped. I think that really helped a lot.
Oh, that's such an easy one too. If you can think about it, like if you got it written down somewhere or whatnot, and you can remind yourself of that, that really, really can help shape perspective for people too. That's that's a powerful one too. I appreciate that. I just can't thank you enough for sharing and being so vulnerable and talking about your experience, Chris. I can't thank you enough. I knew this was going to be a very powerful conversation, and it was every bit as powerful as I thought it would. Is going to be. As we move into sort of the close, are there any books techniques that you find to be a game changer? It feels like you've did a little bit of everything. You did a little bit of pharmaceutical, a little bit of psychiatry, a little bit of psychology, some counseling, some. It feels like you've kind of done a little bit of everything with this, and perhaps there's a secret in that too. There's no one solution, to get where you want to get to. Exploring the ideas that are out there. Was there anything that you want to, again, and I love the way you framed it, if you could talk to young Chris as opposed to giving the advice, and that's not what we're doing. We're just talking about what you learned. Was there anything that was impactful than what I just said that you wanted to note before we kind of finish up?
Yeah, I think it's like I look at it as a buffet. I I tried a whole bunch of things. Some things I did not like and did not agree with me. And then there were other things that I really enjoy and I think are suited to my personality and to who I am. And I think that's what is important. That's why there's so many modalities of therapy out there. I think for myself, DBT, dialectical therapy, behavioral therapy, it was a great one. It's very much acceptance based, radical acceptance. Accept what's happened to you and move forward with that. I can't erase what happened. I needed to learn to live with it, to live with this new version of myself. A lot of mindfulness and meditation, a lot of that, because I've learned to go with the flow. I've learned that life happens to us, not for us. I said that once before, and I truly believe that.
Yep.
I was very, very tired swimming against the current, and I reverse direction and I flow with it for the most part. I'm human and I'm imperfect, so sometimes I want to go against it, but for the most part, I'm with the flow, and I appreciate that. I really enjoy meditation. I really enjoy mindfulness. I think that would be a couple of the really, really good things that really interesting modalities that I gravitated to. I mean, I look back at my shelf here and I've got, I crystals and I play with crystal grids and I read off of them crystals. I knew today would be heavy, so I put on my tiger bracelet. I believe in that. Why not? Right? If it's going to put my belief somewhere, why not? I think prior to that, I believed in one thing. I believed in the law. I believed in my badge. I believed in being fair, and now I believe in something so much larger. I believe in that I'm a part of something bigger. I believe in, I don't want to say like believe in God but find faith in something your really
spiritual
helps.
Side is activated.
It is 1000%. I beat my drum and I play with my little singing bowls and, whatever works, right? I mean, I think if I was to give that advice to somebody, I would say what works for you. You're going to find it. Just, I don't want people to give up. Oh man, if I was to show emotion right now, Mike.
Yeah, man. I get it.
It hurts me so much when I hear people give up. I just want them to know today could be your worst freaking day and tomorrow could be the brightest day of your life.
Oh, your heart is just okay. So here's how we're going to finish this. You're talking about what you've talked about today. It has been, clearly emotional. It talks about, but at the end of the day, the thing that's got you the most emotional is the thing that got you into the RCMP in the first place. And I mean, it's not maybe the Canadian moniker, but the idea of protecting and serving and the idea of you don't want anybody to give up. You're trying to protect people's, their whole life, it's not just a matter of, it's way beyond the law. Like what you just said, the thing that got you emotional at the end of this thing is the idea of people giving up their spirit, giving up. And that's a beautiful sentiment. And it's a testament to who you are, Chris. And I just, like I say, the moment I met you and the moment I knew even a little bit about your story, it's like, okay, here's a guy who wants to help people and your story can help people just in a very different way than when you were a cop. And it's a beautiful way. And I just appreciate so much how you're able to articulate all of this stuff here today. And it means the world to me that you would do this here. And as He Changed It grows, I mean, my goodness, I mean, I see you being a guy who just wants to help other people go through their stuff. And so we'll make sure we stay all connected as this thing goes from the startup phase and it kicks into the next couple different phases that there are. I mean, I'm so grateful. You are the very, very definition of what He Changed It is. And we want to take what you and many others like you have gone through and changed and woken up or become aware. And we want to shine that light on so many guys that are they're just going through it. They're just tunnel vision. They're in the motion. They're in the zone, and they're not aware at all. And it's conversations like this that do that. So I can't thank you enough, Chris, for coming here today and opening up about this. It means the world to me.
I appreciate that, Mike, and I want to give a shout out to you, because without you, people that have the voice aren't heard. So, a thank you to you. And I mean, our love for Public Enemy and classic hip hop, the universe brought us together for a reason. And I'm so grateful to have been here. And, anytime you want to chat, I'm always around.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, when I come out to Calgary too, like I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited that we're friends, and I'm excited that we have found this kindred spirit. So thank you so much. You know what? And I'll move into the close here. We can say our goodbye after. Just stay where you are. We'll say our goodbye after privately. But this is why we do the show. And I say that after all of these conversations, and I say it completely authentically. This is why we do the show, because all of these conversations, all of these things that we have learned, all of these things that we hope to bring out in hopes of helping others, and that's the goal. The goal is to change the world. Well, we can do that. We can do that through the changing of our world. We can help change other people's worlds. And that's exactly what the spirit of He Changed It is. If you haven't downloaded the app yet, what the heck are you waiting for? Go to hechangeit.com for all details. But yeah, this is exactly why we do the show. And I know that I'm going to finish the rest of my day better than I even started this day. And my day started pretty good today. So I hope that's the same for you. Thank you very much for supporting our show and the He Changed It movement. This has been another episode of heCast, the official podcast of He Changed It. My name is Mike Chisholm. Go change something.